I'm very conscious that people are watching this debate from home, have listened to the Minister's words, and that very many of them will be as disappointed as I am with what they have heard. But at the outset, I want to say to people that although this budget is indeed a dismal affair, that in the past, the people passed their verdict on the last government that pursued the same strategy as this one. And I'd remind the government and the ministers that you are accountable to the people, and the kind of high-handed tactics that you've adopted in the course of this budgetary process with very cynical leaking has not gone unnoticed. Last night on Taoiseach told struggling families and working people that they're not responsible for the crisis. But today, Minister, you've delivered a budget targeting those very same people yet again, making them carry the can for a crisis not of their making. This is the fifth austerity budget inflicted on our people, the fifth round of cutbacks, the fifth assault on the livelihoods of low and middle-income families, and the fifth disgraceful episode in which our older people, our young people, our carers and people with disabilities take the pain for the greed, incompetence and corruption of the ruling classes. Previous cutback budgets were introduced by Féin. Do you remember the rage you expressed when they hacked away at citizens' lives? Do you remember when Labour and Fine Gael railed against austerity and its devastating consequences? Well, that was then. Your budget is totally at one with the last failed government. Nothing you've said today has not been said by them. You promised something different, you promised change, but today's budget consigns all of your promises to the dustbin of two-faced, sleevine politics. Is an stratéis ach na miat an rialta sha, agus an stratéis a bhíag Féin agus na glasi. Tá sibh go léir ag dul sa tro céine, an bóthar mí ceart a bhainsear na hÉireann. Tar éis ó tábhaán bhí an public súil le athrú, ach rinne tú fiabhlarthú. Tá gach gealtanas caitear leathtaobh agaibh. Little wonder that people are cynical about politics and politicians, because you see, you are all the same. The truth is Labour, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are committed to the same failed policies that have increased unemployment, poverty and emigration. You've taken the baton from the last government and continued its disastrous course, and no amount of rhetoric can disguise the fact. So today is a sad day for this state. It's a sad day for those families who waited anxiously to hear what you had to say and who will have to cope with the realities of it. It's a sad day for the economy. You've chosen to compound a crisis by following a policy set down by your predecessors in Fianna Fáil, a policy that has failed. It's also a sad day for the Labour Party. Labour promised to protect the vulnerable and low-paid. You promised fairness. Today, the Labour Party is exposed. You are exposed as a party who will say anything, who will do anything to get into and stay in power. So let me just remind you.
Deputy McDonald, without interruption, please.
Remind you.
Deputy McDonald, without interruption.
Of your promises to the people of this state before the last election. On child benefits, you said, we believe children should not be made to pay for the current economic crisis. Labour will not cut child benefit. Bravo to that. On welfare cuts, you said, Fianna Fáil are making the poorest in our society pay for its disastrous mismanagement of the economy. It's difficult to fathom how any of this will help national recovery. On your own plan for recovery, you said that you would chart a way out of recession that is equitable and that does not deprive struggling families of the means to weather the storm. On education, you said that the Labour Party is committed to universal education from preschool to third level because we believe everyone, irrespective of background or income, should have an equal chance. I could go on. You made these statements. You made these statements knowing full well the state of the public finances. You see, there was no great revelation when you walked into government buildings. The only revelation was for the public when it became clear that you were ripping up all of your pre-election promises and continuing with the very Fianna Fáil policies that you so derided. So it was out with the no cuts, let's protect the poorest, and in with the pay the banks, and we must unquestionably agree with the IMF and the EU. The unemployment figures, the hemorrhage of emigration, the collapsed domestic economy and the misery facing struggling families all stand testimony to failed policy, a damning indictment of the bailout for the banks and cuts for the people policy that you now so warmly embrace. The burden of private bank debt must be lifted from the shoulders of citizens. It's not our debt. We can't pay it back. It's not sustainable, and the dogs on the street know that. The budget deficit must be reduced, and that is a given. And there is no easy way out of this crisis. There are no soft options available. But there are...
McDonald, without interruption, please.
But there are choices to be made, and you persist with the brazen lie that you have no option but to target low and middle-income families and to cut back on vital public services. The truth is, you have choices, and you have chosen to ruthlessly target men, women and children across this state already struggling under the burden of years of cuts. You've betrayed every single one of them, and the eagerness with which you are pursuing your new cuts agenda is deeply shocking. So proud are you, Minister Howlin, of the pain and misery you are to impose on citizens that you've abandoned budgetary tradition and demanded a day all to yourself so you can set out over $2 billion worth of cuts. So what are you thinking? It beggars belief that in your quest to make Labour seem an equal partner in government, that you grab the announcement of Howlin's cuts with such gusto. I tell you, Fine Gael certainly owe you one. Let me be clear again. The deficit must be reduced, and we believe that this reduction can come about as a result of fair taxation. Now there's a revolutionary thought in this state. It can come about by the elimination of spending waste and, most importantly, above all, in terms of growth. We cannot fix our finances.
McDonald, without interruption, please.
We cannot fix our finances until we tackle unemployment. You've acknowledged this yourself. You're not striking the right balance with this budget. There is no easy way out of this, but there is a fair way. And the fair way is to tax wealth. It's not fair to cut welfare payments, as you have done today, to make education the preserve of the elite, as you are on course to do with your announcement today, and to attack family living standards, or to make health care a privilege. These are the things you claimed you would not do. But today you have, and these are your political choices, Minister. You've made other choices too. Over the last 10 months in office, you've chosen to protect those on sky-high wages and pension payouts in the public sector. You've repeatedly broken your own pay ceilings for your ministerial advisers on 14 occasions in all. And of course, yesterday's papers were full of Taoiseach insisting on a €37,000 salary hike for Mr Ciarán Conlon, Fine Gael's former Director of Communications. So the Taoiseach is not prepared to protect the vulnerable, but he'll fight tooth and nail to sort out Mr Conlon. Telling, isn't it, Minister? You've thrown shapes all right about pension pots and payouts, but you've done precious little about it. You came into this stall looking for a clap on the back for your so-called pension reform. But all you have done is made sure that Brian Cowan is still left with a pension of 147 grand, John Bruton takes home €138,000. And the former Taoiseach, then colleague of yours, Dick Spring, enjoys a whopping €119,000 annual pension. No chance of you giving them. No chance of you giving them.
Interruption, please. Please detract from ministry people who aren't present. Appreciate that.
No chance of you giving them the times are tough pep talk. Have you told them that the state is insolvent? Or has that fact slipped their attention? You have failed to address runaway pay levels at the top of the public and civil service. Your colleagues in government on Taoiseach Enda Kenny on €200,000, on Taoiseach Damon Gilmore, who has left the chamber, on €185,000, yourself, Minister, and your ministerial colleagues on €169,000. The truth is, none of these salaries can be defended. Can they, Minister? Last week...
Interruptions, please. Deputy, go ahead.
Last week you set out in law bumper salaries for the judiciary and the political class. And this week you take the knife to low incomes, to young people on disability allowance, to part-time workers' entitlement to job seekers allowance. That's what you choose to do. But you could do it differently. You could protect the living standards and spending power of families already struggling with their bills. You could ask high earners in this time of crisis to shoulder the burden. You could cap public sector salaries at €100,000 and make a saving of €265 million to the Exchequer. But you choose not to do this because you're not really up for the tough choices. There's no economic or moral argument for the 400...
There was only one speaker who was allowed to speak. That's Deputy McDonald. Please go
There
ahead.
is no economic or moral argument for the €475 million in cuts to the social welfare budget. They are cuts of the most dishonest kind. And you say, Minister, that you haven't cut social welfare payments. Well, one-parent families are to be cut by €122 million. The disability allowance is to be discontinued for 16 and 17-year-olds. It's to be cut to €100 for young people between the ages of 18 and 21, and to €144 for those who are aged 22 to 24. You've also set out cuts to job seeker benefit. So the question is, when is a cut not a cut? Do you not even recognise as you make these announcements what you are in fact doing? Now it may seem to you that the cuts are marginal, but let me tell you this, Minister, if you're already living to the pin of your collar, losing anything from your weekly payment can make the difference between warmth and cold, make the difference between light and darkness. But you know all of this, Minister. You know that the St. Vincent de Paul is inundated with requests for help since last year's cuts, and that they're just struggling to keep up with the poverty in our society. You've certainly made their job a whole lot harder today. And what's more, you're not just taking money from people's pockets, you're taking it out of the local economy, out of the tills of the local shops. Because every cent in social welfare gets consumed in the real economy. There are no savings. This withdrawal of cash from the economy will mean more job losses, more contraction, and so the vicious cycle continues. And this applies to all of the cuts you've implemented today. The way to reduce the social welfare bill is to get people back to work. You've chosen to sign up to the cutback austerity agenda, and in so doing you ensure economic contraction, you ensure job losses, and that will mean an increase in social welfare demand. And it's hard to fathom that you can't join those dots and recognise the consequences of the policy you're pursuing. And I have to say, you'd no difficulty understanding it from the opposition benches. For all your talk about job creation, your record is in fact deplorable. Increasing numbers on the live register, increasing numbers of long-term unemployed, youth unemployment, And all of that despite record levels of emigration. Jobless people wonder if they'll ever work again. Ironically, you wear the 23,000 job cuts in the public sector as a badge of honour. Now, you've no ideas which jobs will go, which frontline services will be most damaged, or what the so-called savings to the Exchequer will be. Your cuts in capital expenditure will equally cost jobs. If you were serious about getting people back to work, you'd ramp up investment in infrastructure. The National Pension Reserve Fund should be used for a stimulus programme. The 5.3 billion still left in that fund should be invested in job creation and not pumped yet again into the banks. Additional money should be drawn down from the European Investment Bank. All of this can be done, and we in Sinn Féin have set out the real benefits of a 7 billion stimulus plan over 3 years. Such an investment could protect almost 100,000 jobs and create 60,000 additional jobs. Your jobs initiative has been a spectacular flop. It was much too timid. It fell far, far short of the stimulus shock required to get the economy moving again. And now today you cut back 3% in funding in jobs, enterprise and employment. Today's budget in real terms will do more harm than good in respect of jobs. You've cut child benefit. That's what you've done. And this is the third cut over the last number of years. The benefit is a universal payment to the primary carer, who usually is the mother. It's a payment made equally to children, made in recognition that this state is such a poor provider for children. No free health care, no free education, no free childcare. And of course, paying a universal benefit means that you catch some people within it that don't actually need the payment. But you deal with this by taxing high earners' wages fairly. You deal with this by taxing wealth and financial assets fairly. You don't target the payment, but that's what you've chosen to do today. And so a family with 4 children will be down €432 in 2012, rising to €768 by 2013. Now, I couldn't count the number of times over very many years that Labour and Fine Gael spokespersons asserted correctly that a universal child payment was the best proven method of targeting child poverty. They were right then, they're right now. So what happened? Why did you decide to punish families with larger numbers? And anyone who knows anything about raising a family knows that as you have 3 or 4 or 5 children, that in fact your real costs increase. So you've cut child benefit, not as comprehensively as you would have wished to. I've no doubt that the pressure from these benches, and from the general public made you pull back on your worst successes, but you've cut child benefit nonetheless. You set out to cut education by 132 million. There was a time when the Labour Party claimed to believe in free universal education, but today you've levied a range of cuts that will ensure that Minister Rory Quinn will end up attacking education as a right. So where to start? A hike in the cost to families for school transport, a reduction in core funding for higher education of 2%, a reduction in the school capitation grants, which you know, as they currently are pathetically low, and every parent who's organised a fundraiser or a cake sale for their school can attest to that. A 20% cut in funding for students with disability, a 3% cut in maintenance grants, and then, of course, the hiking up of registration fees by €250 for third-level students. Well, where is Rory Quinn? Is he in this chamber? Shame on him. The students were outside not so long ago in fine voice looking for you all. They wanted to talk to you, and do you know what their message was? Their message was Fine Gael and Labour, keep your promise. keep your promise. It seems that their call has fallen on deaf ears. Now, not only are cuts in education unacceptable, but they actually fly in the face of any prospect for the knowledge economy that we need to build to help us recover. In other jurisdictions, when faced with recession, a conscious decision is taken to ensure full education and training is supported. This is a choice. You've chosen that you won't tax high earners, you won't tax wealth, and you won't go after the high rollers. You will go after children's education. And these, Minister, are the wrong choices, not just in the short term, but for the long-term future. Your cuts in health will amount to over £500 million, 543 million. And it needs to be remembered that this is on top of a £1 billion cut inflicted on these services in 2011. There's no doubt that there are savings that can be made. Savings in respect of the use of generic drugs. Savings in respect of ending the subsidisation of private medicine in public hospitals. But what you have chosen to do, instead of bringing those savings home, fully home, you choose to cut 50 million in disability, mental health and children's services. Shame on you. Minister, what it boils down today is to a political choice. You see, you promised one thing in opposition, and in government you deliver another. In the north of the country, since our colleagues are so interested, my colleagues are fighting with the British government.
Deputy McDonald, without interruption. Thank you. Deputy McDonald, without interruption. Deputy McDonald, without interruption, please.
Perhaps if the government backbenchers can't actually listen to a sensible debate, they might want to go outside and play with their Lego sets. In the north of this country, my colleagues are arguing for the devolution of fiscal powers. The devolution of fiscal powers so the people of the 6 counties can make their own tax and spending decisions. As it stands, the Assembly is at the mercy of a block grant, which the Tory government cuts at will. And so the administration...
Would you please? Would you please? Would you please quiet down? We're nearly finished.
And so,
we've got 6 minutes left. And would you please allow
the administration...
the deputy... Would you mind staying quiet, please, up there? Thank you. Thank you, Deputy.
And so the administration is faced with hard choices. So you have a lot to say in this chamber about Sinn Féin in the north. Let me tell you this much. Sinn Féin has protected the most vulnerable, those on low incomes and those at risk of poverty. There are no prescription...
Listen, you're not in Ayr Square at Galway shouting. Would you please allow the deputy to finish? Thank you, Deputy.
Can Corley, there are no prescription charges or water charges. A social solidarity fund has been established and the wages of public servants, lower paid public servants, has been protected. So they've made choices, fair choices, and you might care to take a leaf from their book. You say you have no choices, but you do. The EU and the IMF want us to repay our debts, but they're willing to negotiate on those measures. You've said this when it suited you, and they say it too. You choose to follow a memorandum of understanding reached by Fianna Fáil. You choose to inflict the same level of cuts and the same type of cuts. Why do you protect the status quo? It seems to me, from the carry-on of your party to date, that your priority is more about elevating your own position of power than worrying about the little people on whose backs you climbed to get to power. You say that your budgetary measures are necessary, but what alternatives did you consider or pursue? Tomorrow, Minister Noonan will set out the government's taxation measures. Last month, we published our pre-budget 2012 submission, which set out an entirely different approach to the state's finances. We concentrated on taxes over cuts. Deficit reduction is necessary. How it's done is at the discretion of your government. Did Labour, did anyone, even once argue in Cabinet that the balance you'd struck was wrong? Are you telling me today the Labour Party, which advocated a third 48% tax rate last year and which advocated a 50-50 approach on taxes and spending cuts, now believes that a higher ratio of spending cuts to taxes is the right formula? Or is it just that the Labour Party's negotiating powers are so bad, so goddamn bad, that you couldn't get Fine Gael to even meet you halfway?
Please.
B'cor fáil ré leis an sean folaíocht, an folaíocht a hec. Bhí gáil a fís nu a do winter na haireann, bhí gáil a céim chun tusaí. Ach ní mar sin atá sé. Tá do rá déanta agah, agus is ionainn sibh agus an rialtas a scris ach na míochta na tíre seo. You see, today should have been the day when real leadership was shown, when the failed policies of the past were left behind, and when the people could see, at last, a fair way forward. Today you've made your choices and you've shown your hand. You are all the same, after all. No one in this Dáil struggles on 200 a week, has the sleepless nights and the dread in the pit of their stomach when the euros and the cents just don't add up. Has any Dáil deputy put cardboard in their child's shoes to keep the wet out, or told their little one that they can't go to that birthday party? No, they have not. And the people know how hard it is. They make the tough decisions and calls every day. You've shown that you can't take tough decisions. You won't lead from the front. You won't cut from the top. This is a bad day's work, and shame on you.